welcome to the very first episode of SlamCast, where we are going to interview creatives about their process and how they navigate the grind of promoting themselves. We are your hosts. I'm Brea.
I'm Neil. We're both producers and technicians here at Slam Academy, an in-person and online production school based out of Minneapolis.
Yeah. And today we are here with our guest, James Patrick, the owner and co-founder of Slam Academy. He is also a sound artist, a music producer, and an educator. He has been creating original electronic music and performing live since 1990s. Yeah, give it up for JP.
Give it up for JP.
What up, y'all? What up?
What up? Thanks for, first of all, giving us the opportunity to start this podcast for Slam. Neil and I have been here for a couple years now.
I've been here 7 years
Neil's
now?
been here a handful of a couple years.
You've been 3 or 4?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're very excited to get into the Slam community, interview the musicians here and in the surrounding networks too for Slam. So thank you for having us.
Yep.
And thanks for being here.
You're very welcome, and it is my pleasure. And hello to everyone. And hi, Neil and Brea.
Hi.
Great to be here with you guys.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to start off with you giving us an explanation and rundown of Slam Academy and how it started and where we are now.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, thank you very much for having me. And I'm honored to tell the quick background story of Slam Academy. So I grew up like a ADD kid and dropped out of college and just knew I loved music. And along the way, learned a ton through a lot of great mentors. And after throwing probably hundreds of underground rave parties, developed a collection of machines and sound system stuff. And just underground electronic music culture just became the kind of center point of my entire existence.
Mm-hmm.
And through that work, I ended up curating some pretty incredible festivals and events. And one of the old directors of one of the festivals, a guy named Dr. J. Allen, many of you know, reached out to me and said, we should start a school together. And I was like, but I just have one red light bulb and a bunch of subwoofers. What am I going to do? How do I start a school? But I was already making tons of tracks and already actually endorsed and working with Ableton as a private contractor, which I've been doing for 20 years. Shout out to Ableton. And so I figured, hey, maybe we have the right combination. P.S. He was a PhD in music composition, so we kind of had a good yin and yang together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, cool. So when mom wants to know if we're legit, we'll send you over there. And then when the Wooks and such want to know if we're cool or not, then I can jump in. So
Nice.
at the time, Wooks didn't exist yet, by the way. So, but we had a feeling. And so, so it was just really our love of music. And another interesting thing about the backstory is that I had been teaching at a traditional audio production and engineering college for about 10 years. And that was with Ableton doing electronic music production stuff. And I just felt this like dark cloud floating over the head of all of my students because, you know, those normal places are $20,000 to $30,000 a year.
Right.
And you're like learning how to record rock bands and shit. And a lot of people who just want to make beats or express their own inner artist just felt lost and knew that they were burying themselves into a financial hole, learning how to do something that they didn't really want to do. And so really the inception of Slam was based on trying to find a solution to that problem. Because I really believe that every single person has art and creativity inside of themselves. It's just a matter of figuring out a way to channel that, which ultimately, in the end game here is that you have more joy in your life while you're a human being. And it's great to release tracks and play gigs and everything, but everyone gets to kind of define their own experience. And I know for me, nothing has brought me greater joy than being able to just like play with sound. And so we wanted to impart that knowledge and happiness into the lives of as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. So that's the backstory.
Cool. How long has Slam Academy officially been a music school?
I was debating this with someone recently because I'm not good with like time and numbers and stuff, but we're actually about to start our 13th year in about 2 months.
Cool.
So yeah, it's been great. Yeah. So yeah, I've been a contractor with Ableton since 2003, and I've been teaching since a little bit before that. And Slam is on its about 13th year now, so that's really, really exciting.
Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Really
I'm
cool.
mostly happy just to think of all the lives we've affected at this point. It's really amazing. I don't know the number, but it's at least 2 or 3. I mean, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to say, you can say 2 or 3.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are in Studio B right now of the Slam Academy School in Minneapolis.
It's my
And
playground.
there's a couple other studios in Slam as well. This is just one of 4. So can you run us through the physical space here in Minneapolis? Really quick?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Brea. I'd love to. So, there's a lot of different ways to touch sound. You can like record drums, like I was saying. You can play with synthesizers. You can, write songs. You can mix and master. So we have different rooms for different kind of aspects of the creative process. This is, again, kind of our sound design laboratory. So we have quite a few vintage and modern synthesizers, drum machines, samplers, effects, etc. Want to thank people like Virtual Riot and Chuck Love and other people for donating their really cool gear to us to keep the collection growing. But yeah, I built my first modular about 15 years ago, and that's a little silver guy that you probably can't see in the shot. But I've just been collecting and building machines. And so this is Studio B. And a lot of people like this is kind of one of our crown jewels. But the other rooms that we have here are also very fun. I'd say the most commonly used room is Studio C, which is our mixing and mastering suite. That's, of course, for either doing recording of like individual instruments like guitar or vocals, or more commonly like mixing down and finishing your tunes to make sure they sound great on Spotify. So that's like a properly acoustically treated room with nice speakers and all that stuff. And then in addition to that, we have Studio D, which is our production suite, which is just like Ableton Push, keyboard. We have a DJ booth in almost every room, of course. And Studio D is like a smaller production suite. And then Studio A is our kind of, dare I say, event center, which sounds very formal. It's where all of our big classes happen. It holds about 50, 60 people. But in a normal class, it holds about 16 students tops. So everyone can have a nice enough space to move around. And we have Void subwoofers and a truss hanging some really nice high-end speakers. And it's all wired up with interface and microphones. And so you can record instruments out there. We have bands and ensembles perform out there a lot. And of course, we have quite a few late night underground events that happen out there a lot where the sound pressure levels are like nauseatingly wonderful. So that's Studio A. So yeah, we have a performance space and large classroom. We have Studio B here, which is the sound design laboratory, and a couple smaller production suites, as well as the mixing and mastering room. Another fun thing about Slam is we have this mezzanine that's overlooking Studio A, the big room. So I always tell people, and I wish more people would take advantage of this, is if there's a class going on and you're not a part of it, you can hang out on the couch and kind of be a fly on the wall and take notes and observe the class. And that's really fun. And that's, of course, where business activities happen up there too. And it's really fun during a party to hang out on the mezzanine and watch people freak out. They don't even realize you're staring at them and laughing. So yeah, so that's the Slam facility. We've been in this space for 7 or 8 years now, I think. We started out downtown Minneapolis, but a lot of the work we do is online. So we have a handful of crew that work from home managing our website and our online learning system. But then any sort of executive activity, which sounds very formal, happens up on the mezzanine too. So we have 30-foot ceilings out there, and it's just got a nice vibe.
Nice.
The vibes are right.
And it was really cool. Right when we got here, we got a little clip of you smashing on Studio B. So we're going to cut that in now. That was a dope beat, right, guys?
Love that. Thanks for sharing your music with
yeah,
us.
man.
Thank you. I'm a Midwest underground person myself, so techno, house, and drum and bass are really the genres that I love the most. And so there's been this exciting resurgence of drum and bass lately with all the bass music fanatics out there, like maybe moving beyond like traditional American dubstep. Not that that's not great, but D&B is kind of coming back. And so it's kind of like if you wear your bell bottoms long enough, they become cool again.
Mm-hmm.
So back at it. Junglists.
Yeah. You said that you were doing techno a lot as you were coming up as a producer. Could you tell us about that? Tell us about how you interacted with techno and how that became such like a staple of maybe you.
Yeah, that's a deep question. Thanks so much. Techno is basically my invisible child. Not to say that I birthed it by any means, but it's just like something that is deep, deep in my heart and always will be. And it's really exciting, speaking of resurgences, to be able to talk about techno again and not have it be embarrassing.
Yeah.
I felt like for a long time, for me personally, I had kind of moved beyond just like the 4-on-the-floor kick drum and the like loud, like, dystopian vibe, and wanting to make music that was more maybe sensual or have more break beats or more intricacies. But definitely, along with the evolution of electronic music, techno has become cool again, which is really awesome. And it's always been cool in my heart. And it's one of the things I just love about techno is that it's a soundtrack to escapism, when you play music that's based on chords and melodies and like diatonic, modal structures to risk sounding too academic, you're evoking classical music feelings. And techno, one rule about techno is you basically can't really do that stuff. You have to take people into a space that they've never imagined before. And I think that's part of the reason why modern bass music people are starting to really appreciate techno, because it summons that same kind of psychedelic, euphoric, dystopian, combination where it's really open to interpretation. And that's one thing I always loved about techno. I always loved sound system culture too. And one thing that's true about techno is that going all the way back, it's really largely been about having amazing sound systems. And so, like most of the electronic music art forms that we learn nowadays in the world, they are adopted by original forms of Black music. Mm-hmm. So Jamaica, the South, Africa with Afro rhythms. Techno is kind of a fusion of a lot of those things. Treating the studio itself like a musical instrument is what techno producers do. A lot of the best techno is made by people who don't know a triad from a hole in the ground. They just love to make people dance and take people into a interesting space. And so it's very liberating and very freeing in that sense. I didn't have any formal music training at all in my life. And I think that's part of the reason why I was good at making techno for so many years. Because, I'd be like, okay, time to play the keyboard. Beep, boop, beep, and I'm still not a great keyboard player by any means, but techno is just a great platform for sound exploration. And so that was a huge part of my life. All my first 20 years of making music, I pretty much made like IDM techno, like experimental techno stuff. And that was how I learned how to get good at this stuff. Because one mantra that I repeat a lot at Slam Academy is, in the way you get good at making music is playing with the sound. You have to come up with a way to allow yourself to be free of judgment and free of right or wrong, but just get into a space where you're having fun and exploring your own joy of touching the sound. A mantra that we share here at Slam is that the machines are meant to be played. There's this illusion that everything needs to be planned out and like scientifically strategized, but I think the greatest electronic music comes from a space of free judgment, free exploration, where we can just turn knobs and see what happens. And techno is just an incredible platform for that. And with modern technology, like, a push 3 or a modular synthesizer, you're able to capture stems really easily and just like jam and have fun. And anytime something cool happens, you just hit a little button and then you go home and you've got these individual recordings of all the parts. And that's the greatest stuff to assemble on the arrangement view. or in a compositional format. One of my favorite things about Ableton on that note, and this is, I think, part of the reason why this all ties into Ableton in a way, because many of you know that Ableton has this nonlinear view called the session view. And it was indeed, the software was invented as a way to play live. It really wasn't made as a music production software at all. And it was this session view that allowed us to like load our recordings up and then jam on them and treat the computer kind of like a musical instrument. And so techno is great for that, but nowadays people obviously use it for any sort of genre. But I oftentimes tell people that you're better off arranging your greatest moments that you captured when you were playing versus starting a song on the arrangement and like, you know, dragging individual sounds in and like composing the sounds. Like that is one way to create, but I think there's got to be at least one moving element in the composition that is an exciting moment of you playing and exploring and jamming with sound. It might just be like one little percussion layer or maybe some vocal backing tracks where you're ad-libbing, but just find your instrument and just play and hit record a lot. One of my mentors told me just record every day. And if you don't know, if you're not in the mood to write a song or you can't take a track to the next level today, just hit record and do something. Save those sounds into your library. And then down the road, you'll look and, you know, I have 500 gigabytes of samples in my user library and they're all pretty nicely organized. And that in itself is a superpower because when I want to make a track, I'm not going to anyone else's library. I'm not using Splice or anything like that. I just open my own user library and I have everything from swooshies and gurgles and crunchies to like chord progressions and drum beats and bass lines. And I can just start looking at that arrangement view and composing my favorite moments of my own explorations.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it all stemmed from techno.
Techno.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I just like the boom boom.
The meta that you get for the meta that you can pull out of a kick snare genre is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to say about that, and maybe you can cut this out or whatever, is that we were talking about sound system culture and how sound makes people move, and especially like with whether it's techno or dubstep or whatever, this wall of subwoofers is such an important thing to the genre itself. It's kind of like maybe hip hop is breakdancing and graffiti, you know, and rapping and DJing. Well, techno and dubstep and other modern electronic music genres are probably DJing for sure, but then sound systems are like a part of that puzzle.
100%.
Yeah. I remember even being like way back in the day and someone would book me and I'd be like, before I say yes, can you give me the make and model and array of your sound system? And people would be like, what the fuck, Mr. Snooty? And I'd be like, no, it's just because if we're going to do this, I mean, let's really do it. And I'll bring an extra sub or two. We just need to make sure people can feel the music. And
Yeah.
speaking of meta, this is really like cosmic, but the reality is that, you know, the vibe you feel with a person is really that word. The root word of vibe is vibration, and what sound is vibration. And so there's this, especially with sub frequencies, like anything below 80 hertz or something, you don't even really hear those frequencies with your ears. You feel them with your entire body. They like pass through you. And I think this is just a nerdy way to say, you know, to discuss the origins of sound system culture. Because when you have a group of people who don't know each other, but they're all having that same exact like 40 hertz vibration passing through their body, they're basically metaphysically and physically interconnected at that moment. And I think this is part of the reason why some of the best friendships are made around sound system culture, but also why people like myself, and I'm sure you guys too, like just feel this undescribable cosmic connection with creating sound and putting a group of people in front of a nice sound system to hear it, because it just becomes this like invisible glue that can tie us all together. And then from a music producer standpoint, when you play sounds that are harmonically intertwined, it elevates everyone that's in front of that sound system to kind of a higher level. You know, if you play like really dissonant, weird sounds, it makes everyone feel like creepy, and that can be really cool. You know, and then as soon as you throw in these like nice low ratio consonant intervals, it just makes everyone feel resolved and relieved, and it just like flows through your body. And so no matter what language you speak or what your background is or where you live on any sort of spectrum, all of a sudden we're all one when the bass kicks, and that is magical.
It is magical.
Bass don't know no language.
Yeah.
Bass is the language.
Go ahead and sample that for your next drop.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you're still performing and you DJ techno music, correct?
I usually don't call myself a techno DJ anymore just
Okay.
because of my own like relationship with what that is. But I think if you looked at what I do from a mile away, you might say techno. I don't though. I like to think of it more as late night psychedelic dance music.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I being from the Midwest, my first favorite DJs and rave parties I went to in the 90s were house music DJs, people like Derek Carter. And I believe that while all genres of music are beautiful, if you want to move a crowd all night long, house music is the genre.
Mhm.
And I don't really make too much techno anymore, especially because modern techno is really fast. You know, I like to call it techno in 2024. It has to be like at least 132 BPM. And I do appreciate that music, when it's like peak hour. But if I'm going to dance all night long, I need a little bit of soul in there.
Yeah.
And I need a backbeat, something on the tune 4 to like make me move my butt.
Yeah.
And house music really makes me want to hug people, whereas techno makes me want to like close my eyes and bury my face into the subwoofer. And there's a time and a place. But I like when people listening to my music want to hug each other. So especially since COVID lifted, all of a sudden I was like, let's make happy music. And so yeah, the house music. So I still DJ almost, I wouldn't say every weekend, but I do play largely super late night gigs. I usually like to play, if it's house music, at least for 3 hours. Most of my best friends out there and fans, I guess, will know that it's very uncommon for people to play after me on any lineup at this point, because I usually just like to play until like basically they're turning the lights on and begging me to leave. So that's just kind of the nature of that late night psychedelic music. But then also I have this kind of parallel existence that's my drum and bass life. And I was a junglist for many, many years in Minneapolis community, mostly through my love of like IDM and artists like Aphex Twin and Square Pusher. That was really my gateway to get into drum and bass. But with this modern resurgence of drum and bass and modern technology, instruments like Serum and stuff, the new like minimal bassline heavy music that's coming out, I just absolutely love. And I oftentimes say that DJing techno is like brain surgery and DJing drum and bass is like mud wrestling.
Yeah.
Because when you're DJing drum and bass, especially with CDJs, it's just like, make sure you don't knock the table over, and like it's just like a wild ride. Whereas with techno, it's more this like 3-4 hour long immersive experience. So those are two different sides of my artistic output that I hold very dearly to my life. So thanks for asking.
How do you find time to manage slam and play 3-hour gigs at 3-hour gigs at the end of a lineup?
Oh yeah, don't forget 4 kids.
Yeah, and 4 kids. Oh yeah, and you got 4 little children, and 2. They're all like, sorry, he's like 2 or 3. 3 of them are under 5.
I have 2. Okay, quick shout out to the kids. You guys can fast forward this part. I have 2 I have 2 twin-year-old boys, and their names are Darwin and Roland. And yes, Roland is named after the drum machine. And Darwin, of course, he's a little naturalist hippie boy. And so those boys are the love of my life in every single way imaginable. But then I also have 2 littles. I have a 1-year-old baby girl named Della and a 3-year-old little boy named Jax. And they're awesome. Yeah, I hit the reset button a couple years ago and sometimes regret it, but generally I'm happy I did that, Mom. But the other, to answer your question, which is a question I get asked a lot, like how do you find time? You just have to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty, in a way, kind of sad, but the 2 big sacrifices that I've made, there's a handful actually that I started making in the 90s when I realized that this was like my commitment in my life. But one is sleep. You just have to be like, I just can't sleep as much as a normal person. And I oftentimes am sad about that because I wish I had a normal sleep schedule. I sleep for sometimes 4 hours a night, and that is really hard. You can see I'm actually only 29. You can see in my eyes. No, but I also have had to, unfortunately, this is the harder part, is I've had to sacrifice some friendships. Because a normal friend like calls each other and sits around and plays board games and watches movies together. And I don't do that. Like I make music and I play gigs and I take care of my kids and I hopefully find some alone time with my wife. when I can. So that's really, and I also bake sourdough bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cool thing about that though is you can like knead it and then let it sit for 8 hours while you're watching your kids and making music. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, you can do it in parallel. So yeah, I've had sacrifices basically. I do recommend for people out there who are watching this, that thing about sacrificing friendships, I don't recommend it. I do recommend giving yourself that time to just do nothing. You know, you don't need to have 5,000 friends. You need to have a few, and take the time to just call them and hang out with them and work on those relationships, and consider that a part of your like economics for your life and your value of your life. Because one of the, it is sad for me when I look back on so many best friends I had when I was younger that I no longer communicate with very often. And it's largely just because of my own obsession with this other stuff. And it does bring me a lot of joy, but love your friends, guys.
It's really important to have a support system behind you if you're a creative. But it seems like you have a big support system with your family and the slam community in general.
True. And I
Yeah.
also want to shout out to my Burning Man community. They are wonderful. And I have, even though I might, we try to find time for each other, but even if we can't, I just always know that they're here for me. And definitely the Minneapolis arts and music community has been absolutely wonderful to me. And, you know, I'm sure I'm not the only one who who wishes that they had more time for their friends because they're just too busy on the grind.
Yeah.
So maybe part of the secret is to have the grind to be something that you actually really love.
Yeah.
True. And then like I've had that problem as well too, where friends will be like, yeah, you haven't called me in a while. And I'm like, I've actually, anytime I have time to myself, I'm making music or working on my own projects, and eventually I had to reset as well. And I believe in that because like now I have healthier relationships with all my friends that for a while I was working so hard that I kind of put them to the side, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, we're over here, man."
Right.
Yeah,
Totally.
So I'm gonna agree with that. That is like, yeah, if you're deep in your project, just realize your friends are part of your mental health, and it's good to have them there. So,
Yeah.
Cosign.
And I think the ones that are in it for the long haul will understand that you need to take a little time away from them, and you know they can't be the priority majority of the time because it's your own choice of what to do with your own life. And you know, if they're really there for you, then they can kick it by themselves, and they hopefully have their other lives going on where when you can reconnect and make a genuine, authentic connection and you have time for it,
Right.
it'll be that much better than like having a short 30-second conversation, just being like, hey, what's up? How are you? Good, good, good. Yeah, okay, bye.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I think quite a few, like, I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions, but quite a few times in New Year's, I've been like, this year I am going to, like, once a week, just call a friend, just for no reason, not because I need something, but just because I just love them. And I honestly suck at that. So
Me
if you're
too.
one of my old friends watching this,
I know.
sorry.
Shout out. Shout out to the friends out there who I haven't talked to in a
still
very
love
long
you.
time.
I'm sorry, I'm a jerk.
Yeah, no, I've recently dealt with that too. My friends are all having babies now and like getting married, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I can't come to your baby shower. Like, I have a show that day. I'm so sorry.
And guess what? They're the ones who are about to be too busy for you.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Wild.
Yep.
So, love from afar.
Yeah. So choose your inner circle wisely. You know, I think one thing that happens with social media is you're like friends, you know, according to like somebody who clicked a button, and those people are great, but you have to have like different rings of people that you're vulnerable to.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend, especially if you're a creative, having like an inner ring of a small amount of people that you do just make the effort with. And you don't have to sit around and do something you don't want to do if they're into video games and you're not. Like, fuck it, don't play video games. But if you are, even if you know, every once in a while, just send them a text and tell them that you love them and miss them, and that can go a long way.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Therapy time.
Therapy
Slam
time.
Academy.
That's a benefit of coming here in this community is the realness and
And
the reality of the situation is, you know, we're going to need a pep talk once in a while. We're
Yeah,
going to need
no.
somebody to tell us to like, just finish the track, dude, move on, start a new beat.
Right.
It's good.
And you can just make friends here. Like, you don't even
Yeah, it's true.
Well, I have so many friends that are from here, and then like you're away from some friends, but then you're here with other friends, and I don't know. One recent thing, just to touch on this 1 second, is one recent thing I heard is when the older you get, the friends that you have tend to be stuff that you like to do. Your older friends used to be friends that you used to like grow up with and do old stuff with, but Like all of my friends nowadays are usually like the people that I spend the most time with are musicians and stuff. And it's not because I don't really have time for my other friends. It's normal. I'm just making music and they're around with me. So
Right.
They like to do the same thing
they
that
like
you're
to do,
doing.
Right.
yeah, exactly.
And they understand
like,
it. They can
like I'm
hang
hanging
out
out with
with
my
you.
friend Brea right now.
Yeah.
And my friend JP.
Hell yeah.
We're friends hanging
just
out right
chatting.
now.
Wonderful.
And they can sit behind you while you produce a track and listen to the same 8 bars for 4 hours in a row. And they're just like, this is normal.
Yeah, totally.
Other people would be like,
Yeah,
what
I think honestly, not to like flip that into a little plug, but you know, you can learn anything you want to learn on YouTube, and you can like live in a vacuum, and be like, cool, I learned that key command, and that's key commands are great, but real life human beings around you who are in a similar journey or a different place in their life, but also like sharing that parallel like love of sound is what I have so many people countlessly say, like what really makes Slam special is the supportive community.
Yep.
And we've oftentimes, especially during COVID, of course, we're like, why are we paying rent on that huge facility? Like, let's just get out of there and just be online all the time. And you can indeed make friends on Discord. It's awesome, or anywhere online. But something about, I mean, whether it's online or in person, there's something about developing relationships with real other humans. And, you know, laptop music can be totally like a closed ecosystem. And you can really lose sight of like, why am I doing this all? Like something I say a lot, people are like, hey, thanks for playing. I love your set, you know, and I'm like, honestly, the only reason why it was fun for me was because you were here.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if DJs out there, especially like older DJs who've been doing it for a long time, like DJing alone, like it's there's nothing there for me. And as soon as there's one person who's like, I might like this song, what are you going to play? All of a sudden I'm like, you're going to love this, you know, and all of a sudden the inspiration is there. And then when there's 2 people, it's doubled, you know, and so then when you start multiplying, there becomes this amazing, infectious energy. And that back to that supportive community thing. It's the same thing that happens when you're, you know, clicking around in Ableton with another friend who's interested in it, or maybe even playing around on some machines or playing the drums while someone else is playing bass or whatever. It's just like, it provides a really heightened sense of existence, and it's really accessible. You just have to have other human beings with you.
Yeah.
That was a dope conversation. Let's pivot into some other stuff that we wanted to ask you,
Sure.
brother.
Perfect.
So it looks like you have a nice stack of books right there.
Yeah.
And I know that you're an author of couple of them. Could you just give us an overview of what you got there, my friend?
For sure. Yeah, thanks. I have been teaching for 20 years, and through, again, those experiences sharing with other human beings, every person sees sound a different way. And so part of the reason why I've established a pretty high level of mastery with sound art is just through seeing it through other people's eyes over and over and over. And any given day, I'll like, you know, think to myself, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way, because someone else is like, what does this button do or whatever? And so I've been like subconsciously in the background, like collecting my favorite teachings for 20 years. And so, especially during COVID, when I was just like at home all the time, I was like, I really got to have a massive brain dump. It was like I was holding in a big poop. And so I started, I mean, I had already kind of been like, you know, I had hundreds of spreadsheets of my favorite lesson plans and curriculums I had developed and everything. So I decided to just start dumping them all out onto a page. And I was like, I'm going to write a book. And, so I spent a lot of time out on my deck during COVID or whatever, just dumping out words. And eventually I had this like manuscript that I was like, cool, I just wrote a book. And then I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to actually complete writing a book, because it's not just a brain dump. It has to be linear and cohesive, and it has to have like graphics and illustrations and chapters and exercises and everything. And so I set out on this journey, not realizing what it was going to be like, but in the end, it was incredibly enriching to my life to be able to assemble all that information. And aside from the fact that I now feel like I just finally made that poop and I've just purged all that, when I got done with the book, I had a couple different people read it, and they were like, okay, this is amazing, but this is so much information. Like, how are you going to put this into like one cohesive book?
Yeah.
And I was like, don't worry, you know, I'll just delete a bunch of stuff. And after going through it over and over, it ended up turning into 2 books. So the first book is called Sound Design for Electronic Music. And I've been an Ableton certified trainer for 16 years, which has been a great honor. So the book is pretty Ableton centric, although you could pick it up and just learn about the art of sound. This covers everything from the elements of synthesis and sampling and effects processing, such as oscillators and filters and envelopes and LFOs and etc., But also on a deeper level, like really about the dimensions of sound and the physics of sound and how sound really works. Talking about harmonics and vibration and looking at it through a physics lens and also like a nature lens. And it's full of lessons and anecdotes from my history of teaching. And one of my favorite things about it, and this is true for both books, is that every chapter ends on workflows you can do to employ the knowledge you just gained in the chapter into your own music production.
Nice.
Yeah. So, along with that, there's a QR code in the beginning of the book and each book, and you can scan it and you get a video walkthrough of every single workflow. So there's over 60 exercises in each book. So it's about 120 different workflows. And each of those workflows ends with you being able to do something with music that you probably couldn't do. And so not only do you get a description in the end of every chapter, but then there's a video for every workflow. And then the preset that I made during the video, you can click and download. So when you get the book, you get each of the books includes a video course basically that walks you through all the steps that I covered in the chapter. And then there's a single download where you can get all the presets that are organized by each chapter. So even if you don't want to learn anything, you don't have to learn. You can just click on the QR code, download the presets, load them into your library, and now you're like, have the sounds. But I think more importantly, it would be better for you to be able to recreate them on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to bet that most people who read the book don't even install the presets because they're like, why would I do that when I can just now make these sounds myself?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the first book is about the elements of synthesis. So it covers analog and FM synthesis. So you learn through the Ableton instruments, such as the Ableton Analog and Ableton Operator. We also, of course, refer to other instruments like Serum and Vital and Wavetable and stuff like that. But it's a synthesis book, and it's great, and you can buy it on Amazon. So then what I realized again when I did the brain dump, I was like, this thing is like 600 pages. Nobody wants to buy a book that's like 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they can make those physically. So I broke it up into 2 books, and Sound Design for Electronic Music 2 just came out a couple months ago. And this one, if you already have experience making music and you know how to get around a synthesizer, this is the one. This picks up with sampling and effects processing and advanced synthesis techniques. So this goes deep into Vital and Serum, but also covers all the amazing effects techniques, effects processing and sampling techniques that I've learned in the past 20 years of teaching and many more of making music. So this is really the golden goose here because especially a lot of great sound designers and electronic musicians have said that what you can create oftentimes boils down to your work with the sampler and also with audio effects. The synthesizer is more kind of like a low-level building block, and so you need that knowledge. But when you can start putting sounds into a sampler and stacking them up and processing them with effects and then turning them into wavetables, and you can really like blow someone's mind pretty easily with this book. So this is Sound Design for Electronic Music 2. These are really exciting books, and I'm very proud of them. You can just, all you have to do is go to Amazon and just type in Ableton Sound Design in the search field, and they'll come up right away on the top. So
amazing.
They're really dope, and I'm really excited about those. I also just brought a couple books that I just keep nearby whenever I'm feeling like I need to feel good. The first one is one of my favorite all-time electronic music production books called 74 Creative Strategies. This is by Dennis DeSantis, who's the guy who wrote the manual for all the Ableton software since, I don't know, like version 5 or something. Probably wrong about that, but it's been many years, and he is a genius. He's brilliant and a wonderful person. And this book is one of those books you can just pick up in the middle of the book and open one page and like have it change your creative process altogether with Ableton. It's amazing. I could go on and on about 74 creative strategies. This was unavailable for a couple years, but now you can get it again. They did another run of it. So
It's really good.
I bought that book because you recommended it when I started using Ableton. You were like, you need this book.
yeah. It is
Bought
pretty
it.
much essential. You know,
Highly recommended.
Yeah, it doesn't really talk about like, here's how you use Ableton. It's like, you know, one lesson that I really like is write drunk, edit sober. This is an example.
I love that
and it's
one.
like, hey, you know, party with your friends and jam and create stuff. That's cool. But then when it's time to like turn it into something that's cohesive and concise and meaningful in the end, you got to like sleep it off, come at it fresh on a grapefruit or whatever, and just go in and pay attention with a clear mind to all the details. And most of the chapters or lessons in that book are like 2 pages long, and they'll show you a couple little places to click in Ableton maybe, but it's mostly meta stuff. So I really love that. Speaking of meta stuff, I think one of the best books about the creative process that's ever been written is Rick Rubin's A Creative Act, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. This is an incredible book, and I've had it for a while, and I'm only on like chapter 3 because every time I read like one page, I have to set it down and like reevaluate my entire existence. So, it is unbelievable. I mean, like here, literally, I mean, like now is your time to participate. You can hear the chimes of the cosmic clock ring reminding you that now is the time. I mean, it's like, that was literally, I just randomly opened a page. So shout out to Rick Rubin for that book. Everyone needs this one, I think, especially if you're trying to look beyond just key commands and like software plugin installation junk. But yeah, then the 74 creative strategies. You'll never have another creative roadblock if you have this book nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, my books are great. So I just have those out here because I figured we'd be talking about books. So
yeah,
Love the triple
congratulations.
plug. Yeah.
cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
cool.
really fun.
You can find those books on Amazon, or you can come to Slam Academy and you can buy some right here too. We have them in stock.
Yep.
Yeah.
And two, if anyone does reach out to me and wants a copy, I can send you snippets of it, or even I can try and hook you up. But it's true that one of the greatest things we do at Slam Academy is our sound design program.
Mhm.
Yep.
We have a 9-month-long sound design program that's awesome. It's actually 12 weeks long, and we have 3 different sections, so you could just try one if you wanted. And it basically moves through all the information in the book in person or online, and it's wonderful. We do it on our Discord server, and by the end of week 1, you're building your own modular system in VCV Rack, which is a virtual software, or using the real hardware if you're lucky enough to be here in person. And by the end of the second level, your life is completely changed with all the new things you can do with sound. So I know you guys have both experienced that. It's one of the greatest sources of joy in my life is imparting that ability for people to just sculpt sound freely and make their own original things. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
Pleasure.
How do you go about writing a book? Do you just start writing a book and then you like give it to somebody else to have them help you? I'm just so curious about that process.
I think like if you were a smart person, you'd probably do it differently than I did. But I just was like, yo, my brain hurts.
Yeah.
And so 20 years of teaching, I mean, it's just like a lot of moments where I'm like, aha. Like I have an aha moment every day. And think 20 years, that's just like, I don't know how many days that is. But sometimes it's like multiple a day, oftentimes, in fact. So you really it comes from the content is the origin story. Really, like you have to have something that's really powerful that you want to share.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like a professional author, would probably find a publisher and get a contract and yada yada. But I just opened up Google Docs and started typing and made a lot of coffee and just dump it all out there and then do your best to kind of assemble it, moving paragraphs around and stuff. That's a huge part of it. It's just deleting and finding words you said too many times and whatever. That is literally, it took me maybe 1.5 years or 2 years to write the book, and another 3 years literally of deleting and moving things around. And once I felt like I had a reasonably cohesive manuscript, then I reached out to an illustrator because I just really like when there's a little bit of visual teaching aid in the book that just makes it more fun to read, especially when you're talking about oscillators and LFOs. It could be really boring. So I had this guy do basically kids books style drawings where it's just pen and paper, drawing patch cables and waveforms and stuff. So it's not digital looking. And I felt like that would be a nice human touch. Shout out to David Chandler in Seattle. He did a great job with the illustrations. There's hundreds of his illustrations in the 2 books. And so that actually kind of started making it harder for me because I realized I was collaborating with someone and I respected their work. And so I wanted my words to not be dumb around these other cool drawings. So yeah, a lot of passes of scrutinizing it and stuff. And frankly, I think, so then throughout the process, I also had a few friends PhD types technically edit it. One of them in particular basically said, this is not a book, he pretty much shot me down, and you know who you are, and love you. And I was like, gosh, I thought I was going to be releasing this next year. It might be in 2 years. This was through the process. So I went back and just jackhammered the shit out of that thing and just tried to follow. He gave me a million tips, and he's written many books and is way smarter than me. So I just was I followed his guide and tried to cobble my words together into something better. And after doing that, it took a really long time. I also realized to make this awesome, I need to shoot videos for every single workflow and have downloadable presets. And And then I also have it look really, really nice. And so I had a really talented musician, producer, and graphic designer artist friend of mine named Dalton Brightsman, who many of us at Slam know and love. And he was kind enough to do the layout for all the books. And so he took like the Google Doc and all the illustrations and then the like hundreds and hundreds of screen grabs that I annotated with arrows and, and he really did the final cobbling together of it. So it's, and any, I think, valuable work of art oftentimes is a collaboration. So David Chandler on the illustrations, Dalton Brightsman on the layout, and several technical editors, most of whom were like, no, dude. So, but I finally got it to a point where now, like everyone, I've gotten so many people reaching out who are just like, wow, this book is so much fun to read and so awesome and inspiring. And I can't believe the things I'm able to make now just after reading a few pages of it. So yeah, it's a really fun accomplishment, but yeah, you have to open the doors to the creative input of others to create something great oftentimes. And so that was a really big part of it.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Last thing I'll say about that is if you want to write your own book, I highly recommend just doing self-publishing. Like I shopped it around to like, Wiley and these other like textbook publishers, and they're, I got some good feedback on the book, but they were like, it just doesn't really like fit our catalog right now. So good luck. And so I talked to a local music educator and author named Michelangelo Matos, who's written some incredible books. Check him out. And said, I was like, how do you do this? You write all these books. They look so cool. You get them all over the world. What's the trick? And he said, honestly, dude, don't shop them around to publishers. Just self-publish, because even though you might not get the same distribution and you'll have to pay your own designers and editors instead of having the label do it in music terms, like the record label, you're doing it all on your own. But in the end, you get a lot more of the revenue, and not that there's very much money in making books, disclaimer, but more importantly, you are able to touch every stage of the process. And so, and in the end, when somebody buys your book, you see a sale come through, and it feels more personal. So, and I get a lot of, the book is chock full of references to myself and how to get a hold of me and joining my Discord and yada, yada. So I've become friends with a lot of people who bought the book, and it's been really, really cool. Yeah.
It's a whole other community in itself.
Yeah, totally.
Love that. I want to touch really quick on the relationship between neurodivergent people and musicians or creatives of any type, because there's a lot of ADD going around and it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Totally.
But I want to hear your experience with it, just seeing the community of people that come to Slam and the people that you've made music with and yourself too.
Well, that's a wonderful topic. I've been just kind of wanting to even host or curate some sort of like expo or festival for people like about mental health and music, because music is just so therapeutic, but especially electronic music in the 21st century. There's a really good reason why a lot of the greatest electronic music producers and DJs and artists are somewhere on some sort of spectrum, neurodivergence or ADD or whatever you want to call it. I myself did awful in school, and just because I was thinking about 800 things at once and distracted all the time. And I think that's actually, I don't really refer to it as, I don't really use neurodivergence. I just like to say superpowers.
Yeah.
Because I know when I was a kid, and I was like playing 3 record players at the same time and like beat matching and chopping them up on the mixer, and my parents were like, we always thought ADD was a learning disability. Oh my God. And like that like kind of music kind of transformed that feeling of being behind to actually being ahead.
Yeah.
And electronic music is just a wonderful platform for people who want to think about a lot of things at once, especially if you're, creating your own original sounds or looking at an arrangement with like a bunch of tracks with all these different edits. It's like very ADD friendly. And so I think just kind of by accident, Slam Academy has become a safe space for people who maybe didn't do great in normal college. Like every once in a while we get like a khaki pants wearing 9-to-5er coming through who wants to like DJ, but most of the time it's people who are trying to find a place where they fit in, because maybe they tried like their normal like English classes in high school or college and it just was like annoying and they didn't do well at it. And so sure enough, as soon as they figure out how to express their like what's going on upstairs through sound, it just becomes this like incredible superpower that they can wield. I can think of one person in particular. One of our greatest success stories at Slam, one of the hundreds, is a young man by the name of Specs. And he was 14 when he started at Slam. And his parents were like, yo, like, we got to find something for this kid. He just like, he is on the spectrum and they were really struggling to find something that worked for him, but he knew he like loved Deadmau5 or whatever. And so sure enough, as soon as we slid a laptop in front of that kid with Ableton, like the rest is history. And he is so talented and so brilliant, and he just cranks out incredible sounding music all the time. Specs is a star for us, and he works at Slam too, and you can book him for private lessons if you're interested, especially if you love that kind of like crunchy, gnarly electro house music stuff. But he also makes all different kinds of music, and he's wonderful. And watching him and many, many other students of the past who struggled in other places, finding a channel through music is just really one of the greatest gifts that music can provide for us, is like the kind of mental health benefits of being creative and having an outlet.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. That's why me too.
I dropped out of college 3 times before I showed up here. I was like, I'm gonna try it again and again. And it's like, no, I just needed to be in front of music.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah.
Shout out to the people along your path who have supported you in making that happen, if there were any. I know for me, like, my folks really were like, whatever makes you happy, son, and I think a lot of parents would be like, no, you have to, become a CPA or start your 401k early or whatever. And cool, I'd love to have a 401k I started early, but instead I have instead music.
You own books and you own a music school.
I was like, I didn't have that kind of encouragement, so it took me till I was 26 to believe in myself enough to be like, I don't need college, I just need to find something, and I found Slam. So
awesome, homie.
So I have friends that definitely support, but I never had like my dad or mom being like, hey, we like that you skateboard and like guitar. It's like, when I was 26, like, we're just glad you're happy now. I'm like, okay, sweet.
Yeah. Shout out, by the way, Neil's a really good skateboarder.
Love skateboarding.
Yeah, me too.
Lovely.
But yeah, so it feels like we're getting to the kind of end of everything here. Let's land the ship, and we have a couple extra questions before we head out.
Cool.
Just one big question: what makes Slam so special, JP?
Well, we touched on the community, which is really the biggest thing, is the human beings that are a part of the community. Every time a new person shows up, oftentimes there's this initial kind of break-in where they're like, wait, I don't have to have walls up, and I don't have to worry about ego, and I don't have to worry about being good enough or cool enough. Like, the way Slam is a safe space for anyone, and the people we want to attract are the people who suck at this.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool that we have people who are great at this. Of course, we need teachers and everything, but the biggest thing that makes Slam special is the way that it provides a safe space for people to just sound bad and not know what they're doing, and then be elevated and lifted up by the other human beings in the community, in particular the instructors. So then I'd say the second thing that makes Slam great is the kind of from a top-down approach, kind of the instructor community we have at Slam. We have a lot of incredible, everyone that teaches at Slam is wonderful in their own right. Some of them have like just a straight up artist background where they're either producers or DJs or whatever, and they're just really awesome at their craft and they've kind of figured out how to teach it. Other people are more like formally trained and also highly creative and can create great art too. But because of that, we have about 14 different programs at Slam. Some of them are beginner level, some of them are very advanced. We mentioned Virtual Riot before. He's like on the, obviously very advanced side of things. But we also have a lot of like essentials courses that are just designed to teach you like some basic chord shapes to use in your music and like where to put the kick drum and the snare drum and stuff like that. And so we can walk you through that whole process, and each course is taught by somebody that is suited for that role. So when you get to like our advanced EDM class with Virtual Riot, he's not holding your hand at all. In fact, a lot of times people are like falling out of the airplane mid-flight and he's just like, oh, see you later. But God bless Val. But then, of course, our more entry-level or even intermediate-level courses are more linear and more methodical and are more based around like, a structure that's going to make sure no matter what, that when you go home from each day of class, you're not only able to create new things and make better music, but you're super inspired and feeling supported by our community. So I'd say those are the essence things about Slam that make us great.
Dope.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, last question for you, JP. While we end out the interview, what would you like to say to the Slam family, people that are watching, the Slam people, and anyone out on the internet?
Well, I've said a lot of the most important things so far, but I think I would say, believe in yourself and find a space in your life, in your regular routine, where you can break free from the grind, which is like, working on progress. I mean, progress can be overrated. Life is short and you only have so many moments to live in this life, and you have to carve out time for yourself to just do what makes you happy. This has been referred to as the third space.
I just heard about this recently, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not privy. Can somebody catch me up?
Yeah, the third space is a sacred place that you protect and you reserve in your life for your own happiness.
Okay.
And so, capitalism, this is not written in the book of capitalism. Capitalism is like, go to bed, eat, go to work, make money, and maybe, like go to a baseball game or a football game or whatever. But the third space probably isn't really that for most people. I mean, some people just like absolutely love baseball or football, I guess. But the third space is kind of like your own definition of church. You know, I think the third space for like really religious folks might be church, where you get to go and just feel like you're closer to your own God. I'm a big believer that everyone is made of God. Mother Nature is my God, and that's right inside of all of us. And so find a space to go to your own church, do the thing that you love. Oftentimes this is alone, and just be in that space and don't rush. And never, ever judge yourself. So, and if you do that, they say 10,000 hours towards mastery. That 10,000 hour clock starts trucking when you're like, okay, time to just check out of progress. And I'm just going to like play with my modular synth or play my guitar or sing alone in the shower or whatever it is. One of my clients and close friends is a rapper, and he raps in the car, and that's his like third space. And he keeps the car parked like right by the front door of the house. They have a garage, but he doesn't park his car there because he needs it to be right by the door. And as soon as he's feeling inspired, he just like runs out to the car, and I'll be hanging out with him. He'll just disappear for like an hour or two, and I'll see him out in the car just like rapping away.
Yeah.
And he's like recording into his phone and just like going off because it's like a little sound booth, and there's no one there to judge you. It's like his safe third space where he can just break free from like, oh, but my phone's going to ring or whatever. Like that's not the third space, so build that into your lifestyle, and then ultimately, if your objective is to get really great at something, you'll probably reach that goal more quickly than if you just like, drill away at it and worry about whether or not you're good enough yet at this. Like, oh, but I'm already 24. I should be releasing records or whatever. It's like, no. 10,000 hours takes a long time, but it's 10,000 hours of pure joy if you can make sure that learning experience is, again, free of judgment and lucid and liberated from any sort of external qualifier. Like just be it and get in that space and touch your own God through that. And obviously for me and for many of us at Slam, that is sound. And so, yeah, I think that's my final bit of advice, I guess, or things I'd like to say to my community.
Incredible.
Thank you, JP.
Yeah, thanks.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for your words. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Yep.
And make that fire beat.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I really appreciate you guys so much. Neil and Brea, thanks for having me. And to everyone watching, I appreciate you very much. You can find me, jp@slamacademy.com with an email. Or better yet, just go to our website and become a member real quick. You can become a member at Slam for $100 a month. And that's a really great opportunity because you'll immediately be in our Discord. You'll have me or my crew for 3 hours a week in our online labs on Discord where you can ask any question about music. And our community there on the Discord server is awesome. And then you also get a huge library of courses. I mean, my sound design course, the video thing that's 9 months long, is available, as well as 30 other classes that you can watch. And it's all included for $100 a month. If you want to take actual courses that are with us that meet once a week, online or in person, the membership gets a little more money, but right at $100, we call it our community membership, is a great place to start. So you could also book me for a private lesson, but 1 hour would be more than that. You might as well do the whole month and have the full-on immersive experience.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, appreciate y'all. Thank you. And also we have one more thank you. Thank you for having a podcast and having some opportunity for the community to be able to reach out and talk to the people that are doing stuff. Like, I can't wait to bring in a bunch of the people that work here and then kind of start reaching out from there. So thank you, JP.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep,
and we're
thank
going to
you
have
guys.
Rick Rubin on one day.
One day, can't wait. Awesome. We can do some meditations and some chants or whatever. That'll be great.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Peace.
Peace
Bye,
out, y'all.
guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching SlamCast. Wasn't that a fun episode?
Want to become a member at Slam Academy? Go to slamacademy.com for more information.
Thanks for watching. Bye.